Goodbye long novels, hello short reads. Today I'm saving you time and annoyance by recommending good short books over bad long ones. Yep, bigger isn't always better, chunky can be clunky, and shorties are often the best stories. But enough yapping, let's keep this thing short and get to the books. So you want a bit of magical realism set in a confusing labyrinth? Save yourself time and disappointment by avoiding the 498-page book, The Starless Sea, and opting for Piranesi's tight 272 pages. Published within a year of each other, these books serve up heaping helpings of hidden truths, clues, mysteries, and confusion. Plus, they both have atmospheric vibes and fantastical settings. But Piranesi is far, far better. It's more coherent and satisfying in its conclusion, way more than The Starless Sea. Don't waste 200 extra pages reading a subpar novel. If you want a book that'll puzzle you in the best way possible, choose Piranesi. So you want to read a fantasy prequel of a beloved series? Avoid the 541 pages of obviousness offered up by the Ballad of Songbirds Snakes, and go with the far more palatable 221 pages of The Magician's Nephew. In a battle of Hunger Games vs. Narnia, I'll take the origin story with the talking lion. But why exactly? Well, they're similar in some ways. Both deal with themes of corruption, power, and control. But the B of S and S, as I'm going to call it here because B and S makes total sense, is YA at its worst. Everything is telegraphed from a mile away. Nothing surprised me about it. Whereas The Magician's Nephew lets us witness the birth of Narnia. It's well written and an absolutely fascinating little adventure that takes just over 200 pages from start to finish. No BS. This is how a YA book should be. So you want a dark fantasy with horror elements? Read 293 pages instead of 599 by choosing Ray Bradbury's Something Wicked This Way Comes over Stephen King's fairy tale. I've talked before about my Bradbury man crush and my troubled relationship with Stephen King. The problem is that I've really only read 2 or 3 of King's books, and none of them have been his most beloved novels. I'll admit that it's kind of a reading blind spot for me that I'll hopefully fix one day. Anyway, both of these stories feature kind of everyman young protagonists who have to be brave in the face of evil. But I strongly prefer the buddy adventure in Something Wicked This Way Comes over the solo, otherworldly experience in fairy tale. Plus, a mysterious carnival is way cooler than a mysterious shed. And since Something Wicked has 300 fewer pages, yes, 300 fewer, you basically earn yourself a whole other book to read right there. So you want a World War II historical fiction novel with high-stakes missions and friendship in the face of adversity? Okay then, let's go. The Rose Code by Quinn versus City of Thieves by Benioff. Now there are clearly different vibes here. The Rose Code is a slow burner with female codebreakers and betrayals. I love Kate Quinn, but The Rose Code isn't on my Mount Rushmore of Quinn novels. My main problem really is that it's way too long at 656 pages. A tighter 400-something page book would have been way more enjoyable. Meanwhile, City of Thieves is a buddy dramedy set in 1941 where 2 young Russian prisoners will be allowed to live if they go behind enemy lines to get a dozen eggs. For what reason? Well, for a Soviet colonel's daughter's wedding cake. It's obviously a quirky quest, but it has a haunting atmosphere that switches between gritty and realistic to downright hilarious. Think Tyrion Lannister in Game of Thrones. I mean, after all, Benioff was one of the showrunners and writers for the GOT show. Anyway, the novel's contrasting elements make it so it's not a deep, dark, depressing slog. It's light and easy to read. So you want a weird book written by Haruki Murakami where the ordinary and extraordinary collide? Well, save yourself a whopping 511 pages by picking up the 96 pages of The Strange Library over the 607-page behemoth of the Wind-up Bird Chronicle. Both have a dreamlike quality to them as their lonely protagonists enter different kinds of confusing, nightmarish labyrinths. Now take this recommendation with a grain of salt because I didn't really like either one of these 2 books necessarily, but if unusual is what you're after, my suggestion is that you try a short weird before you go whole hog into a long weird. What other short books do you prefer over kind of similar long ones? Let me know in the comments if there are any that you can think of. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more novel advice. Happy reading.